All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. Today's objective is to swap the points ignition out on this car for the new FireCore Performance distributor and an FBO box. So if you'd like to know any part of this procedure, follow along. This has still got the original ballast resistor over here. It looks like they replaced, and original points distributor and coil here. My very first steps, be sure my plugs were good. I popped these old ones out. They don't look very old, but they do look a little bit funky. So I think the engine maybe had a little bit of blow by, but just looking at them right now, some are black, some are brown, and that one, excuse me, number 3, besides the oil being around it, that's not a big deal. One of them had a very small gap on it, like there it is, number 5. I did not bump that coming out, so that could be cause for it to run a little rough with that 10 thousandths gap in it, but that's okay. These were Delco plugs. I went back with an NGK-R V-Power. I like those. So heat range of 5. Here's our FireCore Performance distributor, and it has the awesome adjustment in the inside of it. There's the FBO box and stuff. I want to go over the directions with you real quick. Here are our directions, and if you want to pause and read that, you can. I'll leave it there just a second, but basically it tells you get to the number 1 with your rotor, unplug your old distributor, pop it out, pop a new one in, remove your plug wires one by one, put them exactly back on like they were, install a new cap, and a big deal is to check that air gap, 7 to 10 thousandths on all 8 points of the reluctor wheel, and you can adjust the magnetic pickup inside the distributor with 1 screw. For the advanced curve, they start with the factory installed medium blue springs. Generator performance ignition advanced curve typically begins at 1200 RPM, generates 22 to 24 degrees of crankshaft advance. It's fully in by 3200 to 3300. It says it will work in most street performance engines. This engine, as far as we can tell, is basically bone stock, which it's no slouch. It's a 67, probably closed chamber headed 440. So has some decent compression. It runs on 93 octane. But right now you'll see that I got the vacuum advance unplugged. It didn't work at all anyway. And the very first time, a few videos back, I checked the timing in this car with an old light, and it was up to like 48 degrees total, and just going off the mechanical advance. So we unplugged this, brought the timing back down some, and I'm going to actually read our new spark plug to see where we like our initial and full mechanical advance before ever trying the vacuum advance. If you have not, there's a really good tech article on 4secondsflat.com. I believe that was written by Mr. Don Gould, the same makers of the FBO box. Really great people. But it tells you how to read spark plugs on there, and I recommend you check that out. But that's what we're going to do, looking for the difference in initial versus total advance or total mechanical advance on the spark plug after it's up and running. So right now I have my timing light ready. I got my wrench ready. I'm going to pop this distributor out after I find it to be on number 1 plug, or number 1 top dead center. So what I'm going to do is just bump. I'll show you. The starter relay is right here, and if I touch that just like that, it spins the engine over. I'm gonna move that wire out of the way. The key's not on, the car's in park, all that safety business. I'm not going to grab that metal part with my hand because I'm about to stick my finger in the spark plug hole, but just slide it through here. 1 quick second. I'll do it again so you can hear it. Oh, right there. That was our compression. We find, come all the way over there, So that little mark going up to the 0 on the timing tab is where we want to be for TDC. Go. My yellow mark is lined up right there with the 0. And we can pop our cap now. Plug wire comes off. And you can redo your wires like they said, just do them one by one. One cap, two cap. Find my rotor. It's currently pointed away from number 1, or the opposite side. That's fine. That would make this my number 1 spark plug. A lot of people get offended whenever you don't have the rotor pointing to actual number 1, but I think they can get over it okay. What I may do is just go ahead and mark my number 1 plug wire, and then I know how to put plug wires on a big block Mopar. So let me do that and I'll be right back with you. But I also want to put that back there in that opening, because if I try to shove it down later and it's oriented incorrectly, I won't be able to give it any adjustment. So I just got a ratchet wrench here. Pop this bolt out. All right, looks like we are in luck. Our vacuum canister will go that way, rotor go that way, and it will line up with the intermediate shaft in there. If I can zoom in on that. There we go. Drop her right down. You put you a little bit of lube around your O-ring and it'll seal a little nicer. That's it. And we are down. So right now our mechanical advance in the distributor is that amount. And you can adjust that amount by looking straight through here. You might have to turn your body just a little bit to get to your screws. So now I'll go ahead and put my distributor hold down back on before I put my cap and wires on, so that I have a little easier access to it. It won't take but just a second, and in YouTube time, it is done. Okay, so before I tighten that distributor down, I'm going to bring my yellow mark, which is my top dead center mark, to about 10 before. So to the 10 on the timing tab itself. So hopefully I can give her a little twist there. That's about 5. There we go. And there's 10. So now I'll pop my rotor off just a second. I will align my magnetic pickup to that tooth right there, straight as I can. May need to loosen my distributor bolt just a little. Hold that. There we are. And just getting her lined up straight as we can right here. If you can see down that. I'll get my brass feeler gauge and check that for 7 to 10 thousandths as they were recommended. Now, distributor's in. Pertronix flamethrower coil that is included with the box is in. And here are your FBO directions. I've got a couple different videos on this. This is probably the easiest one to do, having the single ballast. The other one confuses a few people, but that's all good. Rev limiter is at 0 on the box, meaning 5200. So you see the arrow pointing at 0 there. I'll probably turn it up to 5400. I don't know why this engine would ever need to turn more than that. And if the throttle's stuck, that would probably help it from blowing up. Important things to mention: do not over tighten your center screw. You see there's only 4 pins on this box, so the wiring harness that I have, of course the wiring harnesses always come with 5 wires, and I'm not sure why, but it's the green one. This one has a green with a stripe in it, and you can get a harness from them if you want. I like to go ahead and cut it. Cut it there, cut it here. Just eliminates confusion later. That's that green wire right there. Cut it, and it goes away. So now, this is as simple as I could possibly make it for you. So this is going to go into your box. Obviously, the other important issue is you have to ground the box itself to the firewall. Also ground it to the engine block. So they want a good ground. If you mount this on the firewall, the way I did the last one was go from engine block to the box to the firewall with the same bolt. But I may actually mount this kind of over to the side out of the way just wherever it's easy for me. And our harness will be a little cleaner that way and all that. So for me to make this as simple as possible, here is your diagram. So it's as easy as, remember, green wire's gone, the black wire goes to the coil, and if your wire's a different color, like this one may be a different color because I don't know if this is what harness this is. Yeah, this looks like black with a yellow stripe. So that's going to go to the negative side of the coil. The one at the top of the star, it says blue wire. This one looks like it might actually be a different color. That's hard to tell right there. Light blue. So light blue will go to the run side of the distributor or the hot side. Basically what it's going to do, I'm going to hook it to the hot side of the coil, which I have my stock wire there already. Just left it on, just like it was before. And if you were to track it, it runs all the way over to the ballast. They have some plastic wire loom on this. So it runs all the way over to the ballast here. And they give you your little connectors for the ballast. Let me show you. Here's how fast this goes. That's your old plug. They're kind of funky looking. You unplug off the ballast, both sides, doesn't matter. You can plug your old plug onto either one of these. I normally go right there, whatever's easy. Just like that. Now you plug that one back on. So all this is doing is just piggybacking this to where if you wanted to, you could eliminate a bunch of wiring, cut it out, pull it out. That wasn't really my intention with this vehicle. If we were starting from scratch like I did on that red Cornet, I kind of cleaned it up a little. Now you have this little piggyback wire, and all it does is just connect the two channels in the ignition switch, basically. So one is hot whenever you turn the key on, and one is hot whenever you hit the key. And now they'll both be hot at the same time. Run your little zip tie around that. They're all pretty tight in there, but it's just jumping that, so it eliminates a ballast resistor altogether. If you really wanted to, I guess you could take a flat blade connector and plug in, but we'll leave the ballast on just like that. It's plenty safe. And then we can run our wires, but what that did is make this hot, so that gives us a 12-volt source to the positive side of the coil all the time. And there's only 4 wires left, remember, because I cut the one. 2 of them plug into your distributor. One goes the negative side of the coil, one goes the positive side of the coil. I'll show you once it's all wired up here. And here is our box mounted. You see the little status light right there will turn red hopefully when I turn the key on. I ran my 4 wires through his existing loom here. 2 of those, like I said, go into the plug-in for distributor. The brown one goes to the negative side of the coil. The light blue goes to the positive side of the coil. So this positive side of the coil is actually bridging power and sending power back to the box. So right now I got my timing light hooked up. We'll fire it up. I'm gonna probably put the initial on about 16. If I'm set up in the distributor right now for 14 or 16 mechanical advance, that should be just fine. We'll start with that, and I'll crank her up now. See if we got our status light going. Status light's nice and bright red. Go back that way. There she blows. lock her down at 16. Running pretty smoothly, and we'll see how she starts. I'm gonna probably pull it in and jump back on this thing tomorrow. All right, we are up to temp. Take our first road trip. We are at 16 degrees initial and about 33 or 4 all in, so we'll see how it feels. Vacuum advance is not hooked up. Maybe a little bit too much. We'll just see. Cruising along at 2,500. She just floats like a boat down the road. I do not think my speedometer is right. It says about 67 or 8. I'll check that real quick. Running about 2,800 or 3,000 all the way back. We're gonna go check our, pull a spark plug and check it and see what the timing looks like on there. Here is our spark plug. Check out, we got a couple very distinguished lines on the strap itself. So right past the 90, I'm gonna try to point without burning my finger. Right there at the tip of my fingernail is where the initial is. And then total, you can see it was in that range there and stopped about where we're kind of a black purple color right there. So plenty far away from the base. That looks nice. The plug itself was getting a little bit of blackness here, so I think the heat range is good. Getting some color on the porcelain, so I think we're good to go. Like I said, that was 16 initial and right at 30, I believe it came out to be about 34 total. So although I had set my gap what I thought was 16, it may be a slightly more, but the timing light's what I go off of. So we can adjust more in the distributor, but I don't think it's really necessary. What I'm going to do now is plug the vacuum advance in. I got the line still ran here. Plug it in and let you hear the difference in the idle. I did it a minute ago, which got to put our plug back in. I did it a minute ago and it went up to about, I think, 36 degrees at idle. And this is the factory style, factory AVS. I'm not sure if it's date code correct for this car or anything, but I think it only has ported vacuum instead of manifold, so that's what we're going with. Something else to consider, if you have too much initial timing, it'll be hard to start. So all right, check out the idle after we plug in our vacuum advance. You'll be able to tell. See how much smoother that is? That's the difference in, what do we say, about 16 and 32 or 36. Even the exhaust note sounds better. I'll show you back there. Turn the idle down, back down about 900, 950. Sitting here smooth. Let's take a road trip. See how it feels with the vacuum advance hooked up. So much more responsive. We're just kind of driving and listening now as we get up further in RPM for any kind of detonation. I don't think it'll have any. The car came with a vacuum advance from the factory that was probably more than this, but I'd like to be a little bit conservative. And there's no real hills around where I live here. This is all basically flat, if you can't tell. So we're going 60 on our speedometer. Let me check that. Says, call that 58 or 59 up there. Boom. It's pretty accurate. About half throttle, 80 miles an hour, minus 1 or 2, or plus 1 or 2. Feels a little happier at 70, but that's just because of the front end. We're just chugging along at 23 or 2400. We need to pass something. Little 440 power. The cornfield. Yeehaw. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. Check out FireCore Performance. If you give them a call and mention our video, Just Mopar Joe, you can get your discount. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll catch you next time.